that you might have. So with that, I'd like if our guests here can, our faculty and Joe, if you might be able to turn on your camera. But we have Mitch Ogden is joining us. He's one of our faculty leaders. And Dave Beck is joining us. He's our other faculty leader. Would you like to turn on your cameras and kind of introduce yourselves a little bit? And I can unshare the screen if that helps.
Do you want me to go first, Andrea?
Sure. And actually, you know what? I'm going to start recording this because I think there's some people who weren't able to join us. So
I already did. I'm on it.
Oh, thank you. Perfect. You're on it.
I'm on it. I started recording it, so it's all good.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so hi, everybody. My name is Dave Beck, and I will be one of your professors, faculty on this awesome journey that we might be taking with you this summer. I have been, just really quick, just a quick intro, right, Andrea?
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I've been at Stout for 11 years now, and I'm an art and design faculty member. I teach in game design. I started the game design program here at Stout for art and design students. And I've got lots more to talk about, but I think I'll wait for that when I talk a little bit about the class itself. Is that cool?
Perfect. Thank you, Dave. Mitch.
Yeah, hi everybody, Mitch Ogden, and I'm a professor in the Department of English, Philosophy, and Communication Studies. And I've been here, Dave and I actually came, we were hired the very same year and met our very first week and have been great friends since day one, I'm happy to say. I taught a summer program in Scotland a couple of years ago, and I'm really looking forward to going back and diving in more. And look forward to hearing some of your questions tonight and getting to know you.
Great, thank you, Mitch. And Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Andrea. I'm Joe Kaufman. I'm the interim director of financial aid. Our director was fortunate enough to retire at the first of this month, so we're certainly doing some recruitments as we move forward with that. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have as far as financial aid goes with this opportunity for this summer.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. We also have the director of the Office of International Education is lurking in the background here somewhere. So just let you know that he is joining us. And I'll give a brief intro for myself, too. I've been at Stout for about 8 years now, and I studied abroad for an academic year in Sevilla, Spain. And it was the most profound experience that I had and in my college career. And it really is one of the reasons, the main reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today. I'm very passionate about studying abroad and the learning that comes along with it. And I understand the impact that can have in students' lives. And I would love if everyone had this opportunity to go abroad. I loved it so much that after I had my experience, I came back, finished my last year of college. I worked in the field in an international office for 4 years, and then I left my full-time job and I went and taught English in Japan for a year. I wanted to experience what it was like to live in another country again, and I got paid for it this time. I paid off my student loans and saved money for graduate school. So there's always opportunities for you to go abroad again in the future. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. So one moment. All right, so to share the dates and location with you, we're going to be traveling to Scotland on June 26th. That's the day the flight would leave. That's a Sunday, I believe, so that the program can begin on Monday, the 27th in Scotland. And the program will be a full 4 weeks, so it'll end on July 22nd. That's a Friday. And then when students would fly back, or maybe you would like to continue traveling in Europe, maybe your families will join you, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into flights. So we'll be traveling to Dalkeith, Scotland. And if any of you, I think I know there's at least one person, maybe more, who studied on the Experience Scotland program at the Dalkeith House. It was a long-standing program for about 40 years or so. And unfortunately, the Dalkeith House closed during the pandemic, and we've had to find a new location for our programs. And that's when we found New Battle Abbey College. Again, located right in Dalkeith, so we're really fortunate to be able to keep the programs in the same location because we have a lot of faculty who are very familiar with that area. As you heard, Dave and Mitch have taught on the programs before, so they're very familiar with the location, which is always very helpful. New Battle Abbey College is a renovated medieval monastery. It's actually also a running school right now. There's students who attend. It's a very small school. But they have students attending there that are going through like preparatory work to prepare to go to the university. So there are students that they're after high school age, but haven't quite started university yet, and they're doing some preparatory work. So there's a school there, there's administrators, there's a principal of the school, and those are the people that we are working with. We have a contact there that's helping us with all the logistical things, and there's the nice thing is that there's the support in place there. You know, if there's emergencies and things like that, there are people there to help us manage anything like that should happen. If you'd like to view like a video of New Battle Abbey or see other pictures of New Battle Abbey, you can go to newbattleabbey.com and you can view the location. It looks absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, none of us have actually been at New Battle Abbey College yet, but the photos look stunning. If you are familiar with Dalkeith House and enjoyed that, I think you're going to enjoy this as well. So there's a lot of benefits to a pre-college program. And one of the first things is that graduating high school seniors are excited. They're excited about the next step in their life. They're more open to accepting change and kind of what's going to come at them next. And therefore, they are prime candidates for studying abroad. I think they're going to be a great group to really soak up everything that they can learn. It's a wonderful opportunity to really grow and learn in a living, learning community in an international setting. And it's going to be focusing on, not only obviously you're going to learn, take your academic classes, but there's going to be focus on, learning how to be independent and grow your confidence and competence. Mitch and Dave are great faculty and mentors, and they're going to provide extra support and lessons throughout the program that will help you prepare for your college experience. Students will gain a global awareness before they even step foot on their first semester on campus. And it's wonderful that students can have this global mindset and they can bring that into the classroom, and richer discussions can come from that. They'll develop soft skills that employers are looking for. There's a lot of great research out there showing that having soft skills such as teamwork, leadership skills, navigating a lot of navigating ambiguity where you're problem solving and troubleshooting. Those are all great things that you learn when you're studying abroad and things that you can take with you into the work world. It's a great way for students to distinguish themselves on their resumes. And so when there's more intercultural learning, it's really an increased employability. And of course, that's what you all want your students to have, is you're going to be going to Stout here, and at the end, your goal is to get that great job. And studying abroad and learning the skills along with that is going to help get you there and get you that great job. It's also a fantastic way to make friends. You're going to meet a whole cohort of friends before you step foot on campus in the fall. So it's going to be a wonderful way to bond, and probably guarantee that those people are probably going to be some of your friends for life as well. I know when I traveled to Spain, I didn't know anyone. And as soon as I got on the plane in Chicago, I met this whole program of people, and the people that I was in the seats with on that flight, I'm still friends with today. And it's been about 30 years. So you can meet some lifelong friends through this kind of experience. And research actually shows that students who participate in pre-college programs are more likely to go abroad again. You kind of get that travel itch, and more likely you might to find yourselves overseas again, just like I did. I went from Spain to Japan. So With that, just to mention a couple of eligibility criteria. The students need to be fully admitted for fall of 2022 and need to be 18 years of age prior to the program start date. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch and Dave, if you'd like to kind of take it away here and talk about your courses and what students are going to learn.
Thanks, Andrea. I'm just gonna go out of order. We're gonna flip the script here, and I'll go first here, and then let Mitch get situated. I thought maybe from looking at Mitch's, he might have been the drive-through at McDonald's. I'm not really sure where he was exactly. We'll see. Hi again,
McDonald's,
everybody.
it's very appropriate for a Scottish trip. Of course, I'm trying to eat ethnic food.
Oh, see, look at you. You're already doing homework ahead of time, Mitch. So again, hi everybody. My name is Dave Beck. Like I said, a couple of the things about me so you can get context for when I'm talking about design thinking in society. So as I mentioned, art and design, I'm a game designer. I've designed video games. I've designed board games. In fact, the last time I was in Scotland, I came up with a design for a board game, and that's one being released later this year. So it's design as well as experiential design, right? So doing things and experiencing things in new environments is kind of how I roll and how I approach learning and research. I have been to Scotland twice. I went once where I took a group of students much like you before they had started school at Stout. They were all game designers, and we took some classes together there. And then I was back again for some research as well. So I know Scotland very well. I love it. It's near and dear to my heart. So I was just so excited at the opportunity for Mitch and I to take all of you over together. So design thinking in society, what does that mean? Well, design thinking, for those that don't know, is really something that's been around for quite a long time. It's a concept of coming up with new ideas based on people trying to design around certain personas or people, but also coming up with ideas that would what we call iterate. We're going to return to and come up with new designs, scratch those out, test them. Is it working? Is it not? But more importantly, that's some of the things that we would do in a game design class or even in a business class or a science class. But in Scotland, the beauty is that Scotland is our classroom. Yes, we'll be taking some classes at New Battle Abbey, but we're also going to be doing field trips at the Wazoo all the time, going here and there. Things like deconstructing castles or medieval cities as to how those were designed. That will be projects and assignments in my class. Looking at things like sustainability and environmentalism and tourism, which are actually very important elements in the Scottish society, and how people have approached it with design thinking. We're going to even do things like look at sports like curling, golf, and other games, and approach how we can break some of those types of games and experiences down that are very true to Scottish heritage, and how can we redesign those and reformulate those using design thinking process. And the last thing I'll say about that is the goal here is not just to reflect and experience what we see out there in Scotland, but it's also to learn skills that you're going to be able to apply to whatever major you're in. So it doesn't matter if you're a science, a business, an English, an art, any major on campus, or you don't even know yet. That's okay, because what we're going to be learning in our design thinking class is how to approach projects, problem solving, and collaboration in that kind of group think way. And I think you're going to be impressing many of your friends and colleagues and students when you come back in the fall to campus. So that's a little glimpse into what we're going to be doing. And one thing I should also note, like I said before, is that Mitch and I will be teaching classes. They'll overlap a little bit as well with our assignments. But then we're also going to be spending a lot of time in the surrounding area, whether that's Edinburgh, whether that's in the Highlands. So we're going to get to see a lot of Scotland as well. So one thing I want to note before I pass it off to Mitch is every single image you are going to see in this slideshow, besides one, I think, it might be all of them, you are probably going to see in real life, which is a pretty cool thing to think as you're looking through this slideshow. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Mitch and his Big Mac.
Yeah, so I am a mobile warrior tonight, and on the road, running kids around and such. But isn't it nice that we can still meet and talk and have this great connection together? You know, when I listened to Dave talk about his design thinking class, I think, man, that's exactly the kind of class that I wish I had been able to take in college. And that's really one of the big reasons I'm on this trip, is to be able to like watch Dave teach his class and be close to it and get a sort of a secondhand experience to really better understand that discipline of design thinking. I see it in 1,000 ways in students' work, in the work of all the different fields and areas that our students end up in. So as I think about this course of Scottish storytelling, so this is a course that we designed for this experience. First-year students get the opportunity to explore the general education curriculum of a university. And I think that is so fundamental, and sometimes it's overlooked. And perhaps at times people just can think of those general education courses as requirements rather than opportunities. I hope that then this experience will really sort of reframe how you students think about all the classes that you take by choice as requirements, because they're all these remarkable opportunities to really frame how you understand the world and expand how you understand the world. So a lot of the teaching that I do, about half of it, is in the general education areas at University of Wisconsin-Stout. Literature is my field of training and my discipline and my background. And storytelling is essential and fundamental to the idea of human life and human society. And so there's just so much in storytelling that surrounds us. In Scotland, I cannot actually think of a better place, a richer place in which to study storytelling. I mean, the Scots sort of have this notion that they invented everything, and they might not be all wrong. They have been a huge player in the world in which we live, influencing so much of what we do and so much thought. For a relatively small part, a small island, Scotland really has been hugely influential. Part of that influence has been on the world of storytelling. And so this class is both about the stories that we'll consume, that we'll listen to, that we'll read, that we'll study, but it also has an equal part about the stories that I want you students to be able to tell. Your own stories as you're experiencing Scotland, your own stories that you hear and discover from other people, folks you meet along the way, people who you come across in Dalkeith, in Edinburgh, when we're in the Scotlands, you will meet, and this is one of those profound opportunities of studying abroad, is you meet people. You really have time when you're outside of your normal routine and your normal life. You get these opportunities to meet other people. You'll hear their stories, and we'll try to process those, bring those in. And so there'll be both a storytelling and story writing element for you, as well as reading and experiencing stories from Scottish history that go back far, far into antiquity, and then come all the way to contemporary spoken word poets in Edinburgh, who are today's sort of oral storytellers, who are living, breathing, and having their telling their stories as part of their trade. So that's an overview of the course, and so yeah, can't wait to hear your questions and talk more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave and Mitch. I appreciate it. I want to take your courses. They sound fantastic. One thing I want to point out on the picture behind the picture that you see here, this is an aerial view of New Battle Abbey. So you can see how beautiful the grounds are and everything. So kind of a cool photo there. On the next screen here, there's some additional program features, and Dave or Mitch, would you like to also talk about these? Since you've been to a lot
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. So So here's the cool thing. So we're in this town called Dalkeith, and I'll tell you that Dalkeith, for those that are familiar with Menominee or not, it's okay because you will be soon after that. It's kind of like Menominee in terms of the size of the town. It's a nice small Scottish town. It's actually only like 5 or 10 miles from Edinburgh. It takes a little longer to get there by bus because of it being a city, but you're so close to Edinburgh. So Edinburgh is essentially going to be our lab, like you see there. I think we'll probably be going in there we'll definitely be going in there multiple times a week. You're going to be able to go on your own as well. If there's certain areas of Edinburgh that you want to explore on your own, take a couple friends and explore that. It's an amazing city that is so unique, largely because it's actually called Old Town and New Town. Old Town is a medieval city, a classic medieval city with the Edinburgh Castle, which is what you see right there in front of us on the hilltop, overlooking it. But then across this kind of gulch is Newtown, which is a Victorian era town that was built. So it's a beautiful opportunity to be able to see these different types of architecture and history all in one place. That's very walkable. So we'll visit Edinburgh often. We'll use the bus system often. You'll get very used to riding double-decker buses everywhere by the time you're done. But we're also near train stations, and we can also take up big coach buses. In fact, one weekend, I'm really excited. One of my favorite places in the world. We're going to be traveling to the Isle of Skye, all as a group on a coach bus. Speaking of Mitch talking about storytelling, having tour guides telling stories throughout that time, stopping at castles like Eileen Donan Castle you saw on the first slide is one we'll stop at. Visiting the Old Men of Store on Skye, which we also saw a picture of already. Staying on the shore of Loch Ness. And yes, who knows what you'll see out there. You'll get to go swimming in Loch Ness and say you've done that. And for those that think like, what is this hairy coos thing? That's what they refer to cows in Scotland. So hairy coo. So you'll see lots of these really beautiful Scottish cows as well. So we're going to be able to not only visit what's very close to us with Dalkeith, which has tons of history, but then also Edinburgh, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and historic cities in the world, and then explore all of Scotland, going far north to the Highlands. So again, really great opportunities to be able to experience all of that. And then just kind of looking at that last note, of course, another thing to consider too, and Andrea already mentioned this, is Mitch and I are so excited because we're going to be there with you for a month, getting to know each of you. We're going to be living with you, right? We'll be like up a floor, down a floor. Our families will be there. We're going to get to know each other really well, which once you get to know Mitch and I, you'll know this is what we love about teaching. We love getting to know the students, building these relationships that are lifelong. The best part is you're going to have 2 faculty looking out for you then for the next 4 years when you get to Stout as well. So it's that mentorship that it's not just about getting credits. Like Mitch said, it's not just about checking a box off. It's about building the relationships, creating this amazing experience together so that when you get to Stout, you've got this network of people to rely on and connect with. So hopefully that helps a little bit there, Andrea.
It does. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I wanted just to make a couple of comments there too, Dave. You know, when we designed this whole approach, this Jumpstart approach, we really are. We're gonna fit into the traveling and the touring and the coursework and the discussions and the writing and the reading and the thinking. We're gonna build in ways to help you understand how these skills are going to get applied in the college classroom. When you show up at UW-Stout in the fall, we're going to help you be ready for that process, to be better prepared for your classes, that's the Jumpstart part, so that we're going to keep an eye on and be mindful of the transition to that experience. And I think, being away, sort of taking this big step and this big stretch away from home and your comfortable place, on the journey towards greater independence on campus, managing your time, managing projects, balancing your schedule. This is just a great 4-week concentrated period to be building those muscles and developing those ways of thinking to make you more successful as you start your first year of college.
Perfectly stated. Thank you, Mitch and Dave, for that. It's exactly the reason why we created this program, to make sure that students are successful, another tool for success. So wonderful. We're going to go on and can talk about some of the other features of the program, and you're welcome to place any questions you have in the chat box. Maybe Mitch or Dave might be able to answer some of the questions perhaps, or I can certainly answer them along the way. And we'll also have time at the end for questions. So talk a little bit about the cost of the program. The program fee here is $5,900, and how this is what we call a faculty-led program. And when it comes to a faculty-led program, it's based on a cost recovery model. So students are not paying the regular tuition at Stout. We're looking at the cost of the program, like what does it cost for a flight? What does it cost for accommodation there and meals? The excursions they're going to take. How much does all of that cost? And then we wrap it up into one program fee. So the Stout tuition is not in addition to this. It's just what the program fee is. So you'll see what everything that's included includes the 6 credits of tuition the students would have on the program. Includes round trip flight, accommodation at New Battle Abbey, as well as the excursions, or like, for example, the Isle of or the Highland, the 3-day Highlands trip they'll have. Other transportations, we'll have transportation to and from the airport. I believe there's going to be a trip over to Glasgow. So all those things are going to be included. The various cultural events and excursions. Of course, the important international insurance while they're there, and then other all applicable fees. So everything's wrapped up into the $5,900. Now, that's what is charged to students' Access Stout account. So when you're wanting to look at the charges or paying the charges, everything is going to be in the Access Stout account. No fees have to be paid up front. And we'll go through the timeline in a little bit. But essentially, the payment does not need to be made until July 20th. So if you want to plan a little bit, maybe students want to, if they have a little part-time job, you want to save a little money, the payment is not due till July 20th. So some items that's important to know about that are not included in the program fee are the application fee that the students pay during the application process, and that's a $190 application fee. The passport. So if students do not have passports yet, or you need to renew a passport, that's a cost that would be out of pocket. Then, so a lot of the meals are included. You'll be eating the traditional Scottish food and everything, and haggis and all those great Scottish foods at New Battle Abbey. But there'll be some meals that are not included, and you'll want to be prepared to pay out of pocket for those. So you want to plan about $300. Personal expenses, $250, and this is really going to depend on how many souvenirs you want to buy. And then airline baggage fees of $100. Now that's the baggage fees is going to be dependent on the type of flight that's purchased. If we're able to get a flight that already includes one bag, then great. Students wouldn't have to pay this at the airport. But we just like to let students know in advance that they might have to pay that the baggage fee. So it'd be usually like $50 one way. All right, are there any questions perhaps at all in the chat box about this?
Nothing yet, Andrea.
Thank you. So with that, obviously, many of you may have questions on how am I going to pay for this? And that's a very good question to ask. So Joe, if you'd like to join us and talk a little bit about financial aid and the process. I will let you go ahead, Joe, and you can talk about financial aid.
Certainly. I just saw there was a comment just briefly about laundry, and all the things that Dave and Mitch were talking about, cultural things and learning and things like that. For some people, and this comment is for the parents. For some of your young people, learning to be able to do laundry, because I'm assuming if you're there for 4 weeks, you will not have 4 weeks worth of clothing in your one bag or 2 bags that you're going to be bringing. So that would be a thing that you'll be learning about, and somebody can answer that question in the chat box. That's very good information. I also saw there was a picture of a clock tower. We have a clock tower in Menominee, so that was a nice comparison. Although I'm guessing there's far less mysterious creatures in Lake Menominee than there might be lurking around Loch Ness. So I hope you all will enjoy both locations, both in Menominee and in Scotland. So let's talk about financial aid. Once again, I'm not charging the costs. I'm just the person that can maybe help accommodate some of those fees if you're looking to finance those or looking to see if financial aid can help pay for some of those fees. I did provide Andrea a 2-page, well, it was a front and back single-page sheet of information so that you don't have to try to take notes on everything I'm saying. If you have that sheet, you can reference that. And it describes every step that you have to do to process that. The question that I receive most frequently about anything with dealing with summer is dealing with the Fafsa. Now, it wouldn't necessarily make sense if you're in school and you're about to graduate to be filling out a 21-22 Fafsa because you're starting in the 2023 academic year. So you probably anybody that was interested in financial aid already filled out a 22-23 Fafsa. It's the free application for federal student aid. It doesn't cost anything to do that. And that's available online now. If people haven't done it, they can certainly do that. The 21-22 FAFSA for current students that are going to school right now, but also summer is kind of a trailer on the end of that 21-22 FAFSA. So we encourage people to fill out that 21-22 FAFSA if they're planning to do a summer program. If they weren't, there'd be no reason to do the 21-22 FAFSA because they're going to be starting in fall, and that is part of the 22-23 FAFSA, which that's all your guidance counselors in school would have suggested that you fill that one out. So do the 21-22 FAFSA. We also have a summer financial aid application, and that takes about 1 minute to complete. The FAFSA probably is 20 minutes to half an hour to complete that. The summer application is just basic information about you, your student ID number, your email address, and what type of a program you're taking in the summer, and the number of credits. That's really all it is. And that's more to wave your hand so that we recognize that you are planning on coming in the summer and that you didn't just accidentally fill out the previous year's FAFSA. That's mostly what that's for. And then as the next bullet there does talk about anybody who fills out the FAFSA and has 6 or more credits, so this is what the program would be looking at there, would be eligible for a federal Stafford loan of $5,500. Now that's the normal amount that a freshman would borrow in a year, but because you wouldn't be taking classes while you're not getting financial aid while you're in high school for your senior year, so you wouldn't have used up your annual limit of $5,500 during fall 21 or spring 22. So you have all of that that's normally rationed out for a year, all available just for the summer. So that's something there. One thing that we do have to do before we process any aid, we can award people aid, but before we actually get the money from the government and put it towards their student account, is we do need a final high school transcript. And I know a lot of you will be finishing that up and receiving your final high school transcript probably around the time, just like a week or so before this is going to happen. So it'd be a tight turnaround for that. But as Andrea mentioned, since the bills aren't due until in July, that does give us a little bit of more time flexibility for you to get that high school transcript to us so that we can check off that requirement for the government and get the money if that's the case. We do have financial aid counselors available by alphabet. As was mentioned before, since I'm an interim director, we have had a few people move around in different positions in our office. So we're down a counselor right now. We're recruiting for one. That's why the alphabet looks a little unusual. We normally have 4 counselors, and we will have 4 counselors again, but right now the alphabet is there. So those are if your last name starts with one of those letters, those would be the contacts that you would have for our office, that you can reach out to them and ask them any questions that you have leading up to this. I just encourage the timelines of, you could do the 21-22 FAFSA anytime now to get that wrapped up. And then we're going to have the summer, that summer aid application that's going to be available probably early March, right around the time that normal summer registration and enrollment opens. That's usually when we have that link available. And like I said, that takes about a minute. If you do have any questions for me, I will stick around till the end to answer them, or I can answer them in the background typing while someone else is continuing to discuss the program. Did anything come up in the chat box while I was talking?
Not so far. And folks are also welcome to, if you feel more comfortable, like verbally asking the question, if you want to pop your video on or not, you're welcome to ask your question via audio as well.
And I completely understand not everybody wants to raise their hand and say, hey, I have a financial aid question. The financial aid office, we're here to help. I understand some people have different feelings about us than other people. I have been doing it, financial aid and helping students at various places. I've been at Stout for a little over 6 years, and I've helped in other universities, and I've never had a bad feeling one way or the other. But I do understand some people are nervous about it because money always makes people nervous, and we just want to take the any frustration or just kind of ease that off for you. So you can look at that. Some people, depending on financial need, could be eligible for grants as well. So that depends on filling that FAFSA out so that we can take a look at it. And I encourage everybody to do that.
Great, thank you, Joe. I see someone with their hand up there. I'm not sure who has their hand up though.
Hey, Andrew. Yeah,
Okay.
it's Mike here. Hey, I just had a quick question. You were pretty specific on breakdown of costs of stuff not included. Would we be able to see the $5,900 broken down? The easiest one is the tuition schedule, because we can go online and see what it is per unit and just times that by 6 to see that's about a $1,402.86 charge. But like, where would we see the breakdown on round trip ticket, flight cost, accommodation? I'm assuming some of that's still being negotiated, but you had a budgeted number of 5,900, so you must have some targets you're looking to hit on those line items.
Correct. Yes. You know, in general, we haven't shared out the budget simply because they are very complicated Excel spreadsheets. We don't typically share them out. I guess I'll have to run that by the director if he would like us to share that out, but it can get a little complicated and not make sense to people that don't actually work with it.
Yeah, where I'm going with that is I suspect just as complicated as it is for you, it will be equally complicated for us as a parent at tax time, especially if you can itemize. So that's why breaking things out. I'm not a tax guy, but I'm anticipating that there may be other things in there that might be advantageous for a parent at tax time. That's all.
Okay. So yeah, I think I would, if there's maybe if you need something for taxes, letting us know specifically what is needed, and then we can try to get the accurate information to you. So great. Then there was a question in the chat box here. Should we bring cash or card for the extra money for souvenirs? Great question. So generally, when I'm traveling, I will bring a credit card, not something that's tied to my checking account, like a debit card, but a credit card where you know the PIN number, because then you can use your your credit card in an ATM and withdraw money. Now, maybe some of you don't have credit cards, that's understandable. You could bring cash with you and then exchange that once you get over there. What I typically do is I'll bring a credit card, but I bring typically enough cash with me for the first couple of few days, and I'll exchange that money at the airport. It's not the best exchange rate at the airport, but if you need that money for the first couple of few days until you can get to an ATM, then it's kind of worth it. Dave, did you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention really quickly. Yeah, so Andrew is right. I would say that I'd hold off on bringing too much cash with you, uh, simply just because you are going to have to exchange that and you're going to have to pay costs for that. I would do a little bit of research ahead of time with both if you do have a credit card, but also with your bank ATM debit card to see what the exchange rates are. Certain banks, as well as certain credit cards, will allow you usually to draw from any bank ATM in the UK, as in Dalkeith especially, or Edinburgh. And then you just need to know that sometimes the exchange rate is different per that. They might charge more, right, when you're trying to draw from your bank from overseas. So you'll just want to probably do a little bit of research on your own to do that. But I would say you always want to keep a little bit of cash on you. Oddly, still, like certain things, you're going to have pockets and pockets of pounds, so coins, because still, unless things have changed in the last year or two, sometimes buses or other things still require cash or currency. So you'll want to have a little bit on you at all times. But just thinking about both debit and credit and seeing what those exchange rates are will probably set you up for success there. And Andrea's right. Airport exchange rates they're ridiculous. So you want to hope you can wait to do most of it later.
Great, thank you, Dave.
And I'll just add that the UK and Scotland more specifically is pretty card friendly. Right? So there are other spots in the world that still seem to favor cash, but you'll be able to use a card, whether debit or credit, for a lot of purchases and transactions, meals, and the like. I find that very convenient. You tend to get a better exchange rate, as Dave says, and it also simplifies your budgeting. It simplifies just the whole process of being able to make purchases.
Exactly, and Mitch mentioned also credit cards, debit cards. It depends on people's comfort level. My comfort level is I don't usually use debit cards when I'm overseas because that's tied to your checking account. So if there's any fraudulent activity on your debit card, that's coming out of your checking account right away. But if you use a credit card, then it's easier. If there is any fraudulent activity, that's a little bit easier to get removed. So something to kind of think about there. Are there any other questions about this or about financial aid questions or costs? And I mentioned it quickly earlier too about credit cards and their PIN numbers. If you are going to use an ATM overseas, you need to have that PIN number, and so you'd want to, if you don't know the PIN number, then you want to contact your bank, and you can only get it through the mail, and it takes something like 10 or 14 days or so to get it, so make sure you plan in advance for that. All right, with that, we will move on to course enrollment and program payments. So our office, so once you complete the application and everything, and you're accepted into the program, our office will enroll you in the course. So you don't have to worry about how you're going to register and everything. We will do that for you. We actually work with the Registration and Records Office to get you enrolled for both of the courses. Then in terms of making program payments, well, actually, let me back up. Before we can enroll you in the course, you'll need to complete your student account contract, the SAC, that's in your Access Stout account. So you can do that anytime. All students every semester have to complete this, and you have a hold on your account until you complete it. So you can complete it tonight, tomorrow, whatever you'd like to do, and just make sure you do that SAC, and so that we won't have a problem enrolling you in the course. You'll also, when you go into your Access Stout account and you notice that you have your student account contract to complete, you'll see another one that it says e-refund setup. Now, that's actually not required right now that you have to do that. It's good to get it set up anyway, because this is just to set up the refund that you may get in the future, especially starting in fall 2022. So you certainly can go ahead and complete that. But in terms of the Jumpstart program, it's not going to hold up anything. And then again, as we mentioned earlier, the program payments are due on July 20th.
Andrea, there's a question in the chat.
Great.
What are the criteria for being accepted into the Jumpstart program, since only 20 students will be accepted?
Good question. So the things that we look at in the application are we're looking at your clearance, the Dean of Students, well, we call it the Dean of Students clearance at Stout, but you're getting a clearance through, for example, your guidance counselor at high school, someone who can attest if you've been, academically dismissed or things like that. We want to know your GPA from high school. So you have that form. You're writing a statement. You're answering 2 questions, and you don't have to write a long essay. A couple of paragraphs per question is sufficient, and have it be, a thought, something. You put some thought into it. Have it be focus on your academics, or things you want to accomplish, your goals in the future. So we look at your statement. Let's see here. We also ask for a recommendation. So you want to ask it could be a teacher in high school, it could be your guidance counselor, for example, or it could be an employer. Ask them to do your recommendations, and then we would take a look at those. Those are the main items, and then so there's 20 spaces in the program. We have to have at least 15 students to run the program. We're not too concerned about that because we've had a lot of interest, which is fantastic. But for faculty-led programs, we need to have at least 15 students, and the maximum is 20 because of space limitations in Scotland. So with that, we're essentially kind of going by, the students who are done with their applications first, like the first group of 15 with completed applications will get the first slots, and then again up to 20. So everyone has the opportunity to apply, but if you are serious about applying, I encourage you to, if you haven't started an application yet, reach out to get an application started. Even if you don't have an application started yet, there is space for you. We don't have 15 completed applications yet. Students are working on them, but there is still space.
And just to follow up, when will we know if the application submitted is approved?
Well, we will look at when we have at least the first 15 students completed. So it really kind of depends on when students complete. But the deadline is March 1st, so it'll be sometime between now and March 1st. It could be even after we have our deadline, but then we need time to review applications, so it could be into the first week of March or so. Are there other questions about that at all?
That's it for now.
Great, thank you. Okay, flights. So you will be flying with a faculty member over to Scotland. We're not sure yet if it'll be Mitch or Dave. One of them will fly over to Scotland about 5 days prior to the program start date to kind of get the lay of the land and get ready to receive you, kind of get over some of that jet lag. And then the faculty member, the other faculty member will fly with you on the flight. I know some of you maybe are a little bit nervous. You've never been on a plane before, but there will be someone to help navigate that for you. Our office makes the flight arrangements. We have a travel agency that the university works with, and so all flight arrangements will be made through our office. The flight route will be Minneapolis to Edinburgh. And now we understand that not all students live near the Minneapolis airport. But we really encourage you, if you live a ways out, we encourage you to drive to the Minneapolis airport and meet up with the group there. If driving is not possible, then we can look at how we can set up a connecting flight through Minneapolis, perhaps. So somehow we want you to meet up with the group along the way. The safest route is if everyone can meet at the Minneapolis airport. A lot less chance of having those missed connections and things. I also understand some of you might be traveling with your families afterwards, and we can work with you on those deviations. But all the information needs to be communicated to our office prior to purchasing the tickets. So we will need to know in March what your plans are. As soon as we have at least a cohort of 15, or if we have the 20, we're going to be making flight arrangements pretty soon after that, because the program will be starting soon. And if there's any additional, say if, for example, at the end of the program, your family's coming over to travel, you want your return date to be 3 weeks later, we can do that. We look for a deviation. If there's any additional cost to the ticket that we've already budgeted, then that cost would be added to your Access Stout account. I believe we budgeted in about $1,600 for the flight, because we don't know what flights are going to look like. So there's quite a bit of wiggle room there, probably to accommodate any deviations. So if there's no additional cost, then obviously we're not going to add that to your Access Stout account.
All right, Andrea, a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
So the first one I tried to answer, but Rylan asked, what happens if you are unable or you're accepted and unable to go? And I said that, unfortunately, depending on the timing of that, most, if not all, of the deposits or payments probably cannot be refundable, just due to the cancellation date. It all depends. But we'll also probably maintain a short list of a wait list if that ends up being the case, to contact someone if a space does open up. Is that a good guess, a good approximation?
Right. Yes, it does get tricky when, if students are accepted and then later down the road they're withdrawing, it does get very difficult, because we are assuming you're attending the program, and so we are making purchases on your behalf. Now, like Dave mentioned, perhaps we might have a waiting list. It just depends on how many students apply. We may or may not. So if you essentially, if you are withdrawing at a later time, you may be responsible for the full cost. Now, we certainly do our best to try to, say if, for example, a flight has not been purchased yet, then we're not going to, purchase that flight for you. We do our best to be flexible, but sometimes there's only to a certain point we're able to be flexible. We would not refund your $190 application fee. We would still charge the $400 service fee, because unfortunately that's the only way that our office operates, is on the student fees that we have. We wish we didn't have to charge them, but unfortunately we have to in order to exist.
Great, thank you. And then just another quick follow-up. Evan asked, will we need a COVID test 48 to 72 hours prior to leaving? And I'm assuming that'll just come down to whatever the policy might be at that time.
That's correct. Yep. And actually in a few slides here, we're going to be talking more about that. Great. Thank you. All right, passports. And I know someone already had a passport question. So if you do not yet have a passport, or if you need to renew your passport, apply now. It's not too early. In fact, you really need to apply now if you know you want to go in the summer. Even if maybe you're kind of unsure, you're not sure if you want to go yet, I would still recommend getting your passport in process, because it's good for 10 years. You can use it for other study abroad programs or other travel in general. The routine processing time right now is 8 to 11 weeks, and that does not include mailing time. It can take up to 2 weeks to be mailed there and start the processing time, and then it's mailing time after that. So it can be a good few months, 3+ months for routine processing. Therefore, we recommend perhaps doing the expedited processing, which is 5 to 7 weeks, again, not including mailing time. If you're doing expedited processing, it is an additional $60. We realize that is an extra cost, but it also saves a lot of worry over are you going to have a passport or not. The other reason to do an expedited processing is essentially, ideally, we need your passport when we're making flight arrangements. Now, if it's absolutely impossible that you're going to have a passport by the time we're making flight arrangements, which could be in a little over a month here, We can still work with you and be flexible. We just need to make sure that the name that you're giving us is the name you're giving us for your flight is the name that's in your passport. Everything must match. And when you're dealing with a large group of students, there's more chance of an error. So that's why we really prefer to have your passport if possible. So like I said, if you haven't started planning that yet, then definitely start planning to get your passport now. And also, if you already have a passport, look at it. Look at the validity of it. Check the expiration date, because the expiration date needs to be 6 months beyond your return date. So we're returning in July 22nd, 22. So your validity of the passport should be at least until January 22nd, 2023. There's a website here you can go to for all of the passport information, so you can check that out. Are there any questions about passports?
Nothing in the chat.
Great, thank you. Okay, so here's just everyone's favorite topic. Yes.
I'm sorry, I do have a really quick question about passports. So you need passport information. What is it, just the name that you need, or is there anything additional before you make the flight arrangements?
I think it's the date of birth as well. Yeah, I believe it might be those two. I'd have to check with our office manager who makes the arrangements.
Okay, so is it really just the information that we're putting on the application for the passport? That's what you need? You don't need like a passport number or anything like that? Correct?
I'd have to get back to you on that exact detail. I know somewhere along the way I think we do need the passport number, but I'd have to double check for you.
Okay. I'm concerned because you said if you were making arrangements for flights in March, if it takes 8 to 11 weeks to get the passport.
No, I'm sorry. We're not going to need the passport number when we're making the flight arrangements. I know we've done name and date of birth, and beyond that, I'd have to get back to you.
Okay. Yep, that works.
Yeah, and I could just jump in and say that it's very important that we have the name as it would appear on the passport and date of birth, like Andrea said. We can go back in later and add the passport ID, the number as well. So I wouldn't want anyone to feel, oh my gosh, I applied for the passport. It's not here yet. They're going to book it without us. I would just like Andrea said, I would just go ahead and encourage everybody, if this is something that you're sure you're doing or you're really thinking heavily about, I would plan to probably apply for that passport as soon as possible, just so you can be sure you have it.
Yep, great. Thanks, Dave. Yep. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so when students go abroad, they are required to be enrolled in insurance. All UW system students are required to be enrolled in CISI insurance specifically, and our office takes care of that for them. So you don't need to worry about enrolling them in this insurance. It is considered the gold standard in the industry for study abroad, and there's a few details. This is not everything, obviously, that is included, but I mention just a few of the bigger items that's covered by the insurance. The trip delay that I want to mention, the last bullet point there, if for some reason your student gets COVID while over there and is not able to, for example, board the plane on the day of departure and needs to quarantine or isolate while they're over there, that's considered a trip delay. And they would be able to file a claim. They can receive up to $150 a day that would cover the costs. We'll be talking on the next slide about if that were to happen, but essentially students will be able to stay at New Battle Abbey if that's going to, if they had to stay due to this reason, but they could apply for this trip delay for $150, up to $150 per day. Now, vaccinations will not be required for the program. UW-Stout is not able to require vaccination. Now, some of our study abroad programs do require vaccination. It depends on what is required in the other country. New Battle Abbey does not require students to be vaccinated, and students are able to go into cafes, restaurants, and things. There's places, of course, that they have to wear masks, but they're not requiring them to be vaccinated. Same for the Highlands trip that they're going to be going on. Now, one thing I will mention is, after the program, if you're planning to travel around in Europe, they're not a part of the European Union. So the European Union has different regulations. A lot of places do require the vaccine. So that's something to consider if you're going to be traveling in that direction after the program. But for this program, we will not be requiring the vaccine. However, we certainly strongly encourage students to get the vaccination along with the booster. If students get COVID-19 and are not able to participate, say you get COVID-19 right before you're supposed to leave, and you're not able to to join the program, or maybe it could be a case where you could just join a few days later, certainly. But if for some reason you're not able to participate due to COVID-19 and have to withdraw, refunds would not be available that day, because it would be pretty obviously very late in the process. The travel requirements right now to the UK, as you know, things are always changing. For right now, for those who are vaccinated, travelers do not need to take any COVID-19 travel tests or self-isolate upon arrival in England. Now, for those who are unvaccinated, you would need to take a COVID test to be taken 2 days before you travel. You would need to book and pay for a COVID-19 test upon arrival in England, and there is additional cost to that. There's a UK passenger locator form you would fill out, and you don't need to quarantine upon arrival in England, but if the test result you take is positive or unclear, then you would need to self-isolate. Now, of course, that's what it is today. It could certainly change later, which it probably will. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there to see what the requirements will be closer to summertime. Are there any questions about this part?
No, Andrea, just Scott posted in the chat, just so everyone, I'll read it out loud so everyone can hear. While vaccines are not currently required by the UK government, COVID regulations may change at any time. Best guidance is to obtain full vaccination as well as a booster, like you said. And then Courtney does ask, do they need to bring a vaccination card?
If you have it, I would encourage you to bring it. Yep, bring your CDC card. That will be helpful. Great, thank you. Okay, so once everyone is accepted into the program and we're getting ready to go, of course, we need to have orientation. So there's first the Stout first year registration and orientation, otherwise known as FIRO, will be held in June. It's throughout the month of June for all students who are going to be starting in fall 2022. It'll be a time when the day that you come to campus, you learn all things about Stout, and you get registered for your classes for the fall. Now, we want to take advantage of the fact that you're going to be at Stout and add on a Jumpstart orientation the day that you will be on campus. Therefore, we have set aside the date of June 7th. During that week is well, I won't go into that detail, but June 7th will be the date that you'll be invited to join the FIRO. Now, if some of you are still in school or classes, we can certainly talk about that. Maybe we'll have to figure out something virtual, or we can figure out that little detail later to make sure that you get all the information needed. If you can come on June 7th, plan approximately 2:30 to 5:30. Now, we don't anticipate the orientation actually going that long, but we don't exactly know yet when the FIRO orientation will end. It could be 2:30, it could be 3, it's just going to depend. So if you could just block off 2:30 to 5:30, that would be great, and hopefully we'll be done before 5:30.
Another question, Andrea.
Oh, go ahead if I get back to the right page.
No, it's all good. A question about rooming and bunking. Will we talk about bunking and rooming? What would that look like? And I mentioned to Theodore that we'll probably cover more of that during the orientation. But am I correct in thinking that is it 2 to a room? Is that correct?
I believe it is 2 to a room.
But again, I think that that's something that as we get closer to orientation, we've been getting some pictures from New Battle Abbey, so we'll be able to supply some of that to people so they can see what they'd expect. And one thing I should note too, beyond just the orientation, the Jumpstart orientation you see here, I haven't said this to Mitch yet, but I think he'd probably be in agreement that we will likely be starting to engage with all of you soon after we have that accepted program. Now, that doesn't mean, hey, come down to Menominee, but it might mean us connecting, getting to know each other online a little bit more. Because, it's if we're going to be spending so much time together, might as well get to know each other a little bit ahead of time. And that it might even help with some of the roommate situation too. So there will be more to come over the next couple months for sure.
Absolutely. And I hadn't told Dave yet, but I was planning the very same thing, right? To start engaging you students who are, as we get the roster for the trip, then we'll start passing some of this kind of the more detailed information, so you could be packing, planning, preparing. So both the practical side of the trip as well as the academic side, starting to open some of the doors to the questions we'll be asking and answering through our courses.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Excellent. I can imagine also, I know that we had talked about before, but upon return to Stout, talked about, planning things for, once you've started your time here at Stout in year 1 and year 2, we definitely want to keep that cohort and plan some activities around your return as well. So I think it'll be an exciting time. It'll be great for you to all reconnect too. Okay, so I know we've mentioned a lot of things this evening and it might be boggling your mind a little bit, but I kind of put out a general little timeline of when things need to be done. And Joe or Dave or Mitch, if you want to jump in with anything, if you think I'm missing something or whatnot. But so a timeline of right now, you want to apply for your passport or renew your passport. By March 1st, as we've mentioned, is the program application deadline. And then I mentioned also you can do your student account contract at any time, but March 15th would be the latest because we're going to be looking at doing course enrollment by then. So April 1st, we want to have the course enrollment finished. And then April 15th, and again, you want to have your 2021-22 Fafsa complete by April 15th, but again, you can certainly do it sooner. That also includes the Stout summer application, but those are just some good target dates to kind of plan for. Then June 7th is the FIRO, first year registration orientation, and the Jumpstart orientation. And then in June is when you'd want to send the high school transcript to the admissions office so that the financial aid can be dispersed. And the most exciting date of all, June 26th, flying to Scotland. July 20th is when payments are due to the Student Business Services Office. If you're not real sure yet how to make payments, you can go to Stout's website, use the little search bar, and type in tuition payments and due dates, and you'll find all the information you need to know. And then July 22nd is when the program concludes and you return to the US or continue on to further travel within the US or within Europe. So the application, if you're interested, if you have not started an application yet and you're interested in starting one, you can send an email to the study abroad account, studyabroad@uwstout.edu. The application, this is our website where the application can be found, but you'll be, I missed the M on the, I apologize, I'll miss an M on the end here. But you'll be getting a link also of where to start the application. I'm always available as well for meeting times. And when you are doing the initial contacting me saying that you want to apply for this program, I'm going to give you all my contact information, how to schedule an appointment, all the other details that you need to know. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to answer questions. So with that, I'd like to kind of open it up again. This is the ending of the presentation. So any questions you may have, I'm happy to answer.
Me too. I'm happy to.
We, not just me.
Mitch, where are you? Are you in traffic?
I'm all over. I told you, mobile warrior. There are a lot of trips to McDonald's.
McArby's, McWendy's.
He's in his private jet. That's why he's got the seatbelt on.
That's right. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. So Rylan asks, will other colleges, or no, sorry, Evan asked two questions at once. Evan asked, do we need to get a special cell plan for Scotland? Do you want me to cover that one, Andrea?
Sure, go for it. Mm-hmm.
So great question, Evan. So you could go about this a couple different ways. Depending on your plan. So for instance, if you have certain ones that allow for international roaming or calling, wonderful, you could look into that plan. Some plans support that and make it almost free. Like if you have Google Fi, I think it's nearly the same price. So you can look into that. What I've done the last 2 times that you're welcome to do as well is you can actually just walk into the equivalent to kind of like a CVS or a Walgreens there, and you can buy a SIM card that will essentially last you a month. And you'll buy it, you'll pop it into your phone, you'll call a number. It's a little annoying to wait for a few minutes to try and get everything done, but then you're good. And you've got texting, and it's a prepaid, basically. It's not a burner, but it's like a prepaid cell that you can both talk and text on. So I would say that you'd probably want to plan on one of those 2 options. I'm sure Andrea has experience across the globe for other ways, but I know in Scotland, that's worked out really well to either use your own plan if it's got a good deal, so you don't have to mess with all that, or you have a new plan and it's a brand new number, keep in mind. So when you pop that SIM card into your phone, you no longer have your old number anymore. I mean, you can put it back in and you'll get it later, but then you'll be using a new number when you're over there. And most people use WhatsApp for a lot of messaging over there and calling, because then you can call on Wi-Fi and text and talk for free. So that's another option too. But I definitely would think about something, because Wi-Fi is not everywhere over there.
Great, thanks,
and
Dave.
I'll just say, as I recall, those SIM card, I can't remember the price, but they're very reasonable.
Oh yeah,
it's not inexpensive. No one does mobile as bad as America.
Yeah.
Everywhere else in the world, it's much more affordable.
It's like $20, or it's probably like 15, 20 pounds. So 25 or so bucks. So it's definitely affordable. Let's see, another one. Will other colleges be attending at the same time, Andrea?
No, this program is only for Stout students. So that's the intention is to really get you to meet each other and have that bonding experience. So, and this is the first time we're offering this program. So we are, it's just going to be specific to Stout.
Awesome. And then Rylan has another question. Can family visit during the 4 weeks, or is it best to wait until after?
I would recommend after. You're going to be very busy during the program, and you're engaged and you're taking 6 credits in a 4-week period. So it is going to be intense academics, and then you're going to be busy on excursions and things like that. So my recommendation would be wait till after.
Awesome. Good. Yeah. And I would say the same thing. One thing I'm not sure if we talked about that's good to know is that we understand that we're in Scotland and we're not in Menominee in the middle of winter. So we want to take advantage of the fact that we're in this amazing space. So Mitch and I, of course, are going to be teaching class, like I mentioned, but we're also going to give you time each day to explore and, again, use that surrounding Scottish landscape and city as your classroom. We're also going to make sure that you have ample time on the weekends to do that as well. That might be that you stick around. That might be you go into the city. So as Andrea said, I would recommend, sure, maybe your family could visit you, but I would hate to see them come all the way here and you only have a day or so to meet with them, and then you've got to go back to class and other activities. We're going on trips all over the country. So it would be smartest probably to wait until the end of the trip to really take full advantage of you being able to spend time with them. Let's see. And Scott, be sure people, if you didn't see this, Scott mentioned that, yeah, Wi-Fi calling. Scott set up something with his carrier for Wi-Fi calling, which again can allow things to be completely free. But again, I think, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, you would need to have Wi-Fi to be able to make those calls. So if it's somewhere that's not, that's where I would suggest still having some sort of backup just in case in those situations. But yeah, for sure. And then I think I saw, did I see someone's hand up? Oh, yeah. Someone's hand came up. I can't see. Andrew Townsend?
Yeah. So on the application, we obviously won't be getting the passport by the time the application is due on March 1st. So how, or what do we put in, what do we put the information on? So what information do we need to submit in that application to, make it valid? And then where do we send the passport or the picture of the passport or whatever it may be? Where do we send that? Who do we send it to? And is there anything else we need to add to it?
Right. Yep. Great question. So what you can do in order to fulfill the passport requirement in your application so you can actually submit it, you can simply, couple of things. One, you could just write on a little Word document and upload it to say, my passport is in process, or I applied for it on this date, just something to let me know that it's in process. Some people will upload the application that they filled out. Either is fine, just something to let me know that it's in process. And then you can go ahead and submit your application, and I can review applications without the passport. Once you do get the passport, then you can email it either directly to me or the Study Abroad account, studyabroad@uwstout.edu. I look at that many times a day. So either one.
Do you want us to put our, whatever our name would be on the passport? Do you want us to add that in the Google Doc or the whatever doc we use?
Yeah, you could do that.
Name, birthday, social security, all that stuff.
You don't need social security, but
okay.
Yeah, the name of how it would be on your passport, that would be great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
Andrea, someone had asked that in the chat earlier, and I took a guess that maybe could also include a driver's license, picture of a driver's license. Would that help with anything?
Yes, I mean, no, we don't really know. It won't matter either way.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Yeah, we haven't really, I would say no, it's not necessary just because it'd be additional information that we don't really need in the application, but.
Got it. So that whoever asked that before and I answered that, you can just ignore me.
And it's not wrong. I mean, if it's there, it's there. It's totally fine. Other questions? Are we able to apply and then figure out financial aid after? Yes, you're more than welcome to do that, as long as you know that you will somehow be able to afford the program. I don't want you to get into a situation where you fill out the application, you're accepted, we're making flight arrangements, and then in April you're not sure if you'll April or May, you're not sure if you can afford the program. So I would just make note of some of your finances, and I don't know if Joe, if you have if you can weigh in on maybe the time frame of when if students are filling out the application, when might they know how much? I mean, $5,500 they're eligible for, but do they want to take out the whole amount? Are they able to receive at all? Maybe you could just weigh in on that question.
Certainly. Right. So I would encourage them to fill out the Fafsa as soon as they can. I mean, they don't have to stop listening to our conversation right now and go do it, but soon do that. And then we would get that and probably, like I said, we'll probably have the summer application turned on in early March, so that'll be available shortly after that. So we would be hoping if we had all of that information ahead of time, that we could get some information to you within a few weeks before the end of March. I just don't know the timeline on when you need everything on your side, Andrea, and I don't want to ever tell somebody, oh, we'll for sure have your information out and you'll know exactly what it'll be, because everybody's situation is different on that. And if they'd like to follow up or get some more information, I definitely would encourage them to email the counselor that is for their part of the alphabet, and that person would follow up with you right away and let you know. They can't predict the future, but they can kind of walk you through it, and they can look at your personal situation, because obviously we don't want to talk about everybody's personal finances when we're on a Teams meeting. So, and we care about each individual person. I know we talk about this as a group, but each person is an individual, and we want to make sure that we give you the correct attention so that we can get that taken care of for you.
Great, thank you, Joe. There's another question here, Gavin, from Gavin saying, I have gotten 10 out of 12 objectives completed on the application. Would the final 2 be the application fee and the academic recommendation? So you're going to actually have to go into your application to find that question. I mean, I could certainly help you look at that, just obviously not right now. But if you go into your application, you're going to see the list of items that you've completed or not. It's going to say, there's a date at the top, it says date submitted, and then there'll be a date under there if it's actually submitted. So you just want to look for the 2 items that have no date there, and that'll tell you what you still need to complete. See, there's a question, when is your cutoff date for if someone backs out and adding a person from the wait list? We don't have a cutoff date, because essentially we're looking at March 1st as the deadline, and then we're accepting students after that. And if you're accepted, then we're moving forward on purchases. If you're having to back out, I mean, we don't have a date for that. I guess if you're having to back out, we look at what the situation is. Can we refund anything or not charge you for something? And we don't have that's so hard to predict, because we're constantly making purchases. After students are accepted, we are moving forward and thinking that you are going. Like we talked about before, maybe there could be a waiting list, maybe there won't. It's going to just depend on how many students are applying. So we really encourage you as much as possible to know that you want to go before you are completing the process. Other questions? Okay, well, we'll close this for the evening then. I'm just going to put the couple of the email addresses in the chat box here. The study abroad at UW-Stout.edu that you can contact for any questions. And I'll also put my own email in there. Course A at UW-Stout.edu. You feel free to contact me anytime. There is a question from Sydney. Is the recommendation supposed to answer specific questions? Yes, good question. So when you put the person's name in for the recommendation, essentially you're sending them a link. They're going to be clicking on that link, and they'll see about a dozen different questions that they need to answer, and they're just selecting radio buttons for their answers. And then they can add any notes that they wish or any additional comments if they wish.
And I'll just add, Sydney, that these are questions that really kind of address, the potential student traveler in a kind of holistic way, right? Are they well adjusted?
Mm-hmm.
Are they independent? Are they mature and responsible? And so a good recommender will be someone who can try to speak to kind of your whole character, your fitness for this kind of experience, going abroad, having some independence, being a part of a group, and being able to keep up with the work, and also just manage the experience and thrive in this environment.
Perfect. Thank you, Mitch, for adding that. All right. Well, go ahead.
Sorry. Will we be able to know when our recommender fills out the application, or?
Yes. So you can go into your application. You can see the date that it was submitted. But you know, if I see that you have everything else complete except the recommendation, what I do is I usually I have a way of resending it to your recommender. And also let them know, have them check their junk mail file. I noticed some emails that I was getting from a lot of you were going to junk mail, unfortunately. Hopefully have figured that out. But have them check their junk mail file, because the email will come from the study abroad account. And so sometimes it ends up in junk mail. So have them check that. So if you have everything filled out and we're just waiting for that, I'm flexible and trying to, like, you know, just wait for them to submit that. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We thank you very much for joining us this evening. And I'm just going to hang out here for a few minutes. If you would like to stay on and answer any questions at that time, you're more than welcome to.